go to the restream.
Okay, it's live on Twitch. And it is live on YouTube.
Great, I see it. I'm gonna turn that chat on. All right. I'm gonna do a, nope, I won't do that.
However, I see no video.
No video, eh? Who needs video? What did video ever do for us? Stupid video. Retweet. Okay. Still no video, huh? Now does it have video?
I think it flat. Oh, yep.
Yep. Yay.
We got
Here
it.
we are.
Okay. I'm gonna go to the webcams.
Yay, we could hear everything. Awesome.
Great.
Oh.
Nope, not gonna do that. I need
Oh,
to
okay.
separate
It's like
it
it went
out.
away.
Yeah. I need to isolate you, Will. Nope. Cool. I think we're good now. All right, EE, tell us if all the
Everything
audio
looks
is
good.
working. Ha!
Can you hear me? Am I there? Okay. Yeah. Looks.
We're here.
Sweet. We're doing
it. Worked. It worked.
Yay, everything's good.
We know
All
how
is
computers
good.
do things.
You know, when you don't have a dedicated streaming setup, this is what happens. Is the audio actually going through? Are we okay on that front?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Does it sound like horrible garbage? Because I hope it does.
Yeah.
That's my favorite kind of audio.
It sounds like high quality garbage.
Okay.
Excellent.
Still garbage.
Yeah, that should be my new Twitter handle, actually.
Hi, Will.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome.
Alex.
Hello, people who are tuning in now on the live stream or later on the video. Welcome. We're doing Heart to Heart today. And I have Will Tate with us. He's our lead environment artist at Heart Machine. And we're going to talk about environment art. Really strange, right? That you would talk about that. Will, do you want to do an introduction for yourself and I don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself at the top?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is William Tate. I am a lead environment artist here at Heart Machine. I've been at a few other studios before this. Wildcard, ArenaNet, Certain Affinity, a few places, mostly specializing in environment art or materials and shaders throughout my career. I've always loved all aspects of the environment art process. And so, yeah, I had my little stint in AAA, and now I'm back on the indie side, and I love being here. So,
well, thanks for being here. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about environment art itself. Part of the purpose of these chats is to dig into your profession more specifically and get an idea of what it takes to make environment art in a game. So how did you how did you get into making this stuff back in the olden days?
In the olden days, when I was in college, I actually started in college to be a graphic designer. And so my first major was in graphic design. And then I went to a school that had it had a small game program. and I had some friends who were in it, and they kind of roped me in. And I started off trying to do concept art, which was very hard. And then went to character art, also hard. Then I went to UI, super hard. Um, and then I was like, well, shoot, what else is there? There's trees and rocks in video games. I could make those. And I started doing it, and it was also hard, but I actually found it very gratifying. So the earliest games that I worked on were all very like indie, small projects, that sort of thing. Um, it was like student sort of projects, and we were using Unity 3, I
Mm,
think. So that was like ages and ages ago.
that is ages
Uh,
ago. Unity
yeah,
3.
yeah. It was like cutting edge technology because it was, I think, like one of the first like free, completely free like game engines that you could download, and it had like a relatively solid 3D package that you could, place stuff in. And yeah, I just had to basically didn't even make stuff with like normal maps or anything like that. It was just all very stylized. I mean, I fell in love with like stylized art pretty early on. I kind of knew that that was the direction I wanted to go down. Um, so yeah, that was the ye olden days, and we didn't have like really ZBrush that much. Like ZBrush was still burgeoning at the time, and uh,
Burgeoning.
it was I guess I don't know if that's the correct usage.
No, I
it was
like
a
this choice of phrasing.
it was emerging into the industry as more of a thing,
Out of the
and
swamp.
yes, but it was also very exciting because we also had Substance Designer. I think that was where I got really into materials as kind of a quote unquote specialization because I started messing around with that program, and I've never been very good at programming as a like with text and stuff. But for some reason, when you translate that into like visual nodes, like that was like playing with Legos for me. So that was a big thing that I gravitated towards.
Mm.
And so like building textures out in there, and then also just like I really enjoyed making like kits of pieces and then handing those kits off to like level artists and seeing what they did with them because they would always come back to you with like some astounding like thing that you never like anticipated they would come up with. Like it's you give them a barrel and some brooms and a tarp, and then they're like, hey, look, I made a scarecrow, and or I made like a whole like house or something, and you're like, wow, I cool.
Did somebody actually make
So
a scarecrow?
yeah, yeah. When Trade Secret, which was the first game I ever worked on, they were one of the level guys would just get absolutely wild with some of the things that he would make in there. But it was, yeah, I think that was where I kind of fell in love with it overall, and never stopped.
What was the first time you felt like you were working on a real game at a real company?
Oh, a real game at a I mean, it would probably have been Ark Survival Evolved.
Okay.
That one was the one that I think was like my first foot in the door. They reached out to me when I lived in Phoenix, and they're up in Washington, and
Mm-hmm.
so they moved me up there after a couple art tests, and that was a very intense experience. They were also indie, a little more on the double I side. They had a lot of funding and stuff like that, but we were working with very tight timelines, and I was one of only like two environment artists for like a massive open world game. So we had our work cut out for us, but learned a whole heap of a lot in that span of time. So
Did you go into an office for them? Were they remote? Like, what was the situation there?
they're actually interesting. They were split between Florida and Washington. So half
Huh.
like most of the artists were in Washington, and weirdly half of like most of the engineers were in Florida. And so we would have like a stream running at all times of like a Google call between the two offices with like a webcam on our end and a webcam on theirs, so they could like see us, and anybody could like walk up to the stream and be like, hey, is so and so there? And then they would just like come up and like like talk and stuff. It was kind of cool.
That is, those types of like portcullises into another dimension are always very strange to me.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
get my
yeah, it
way around
really
it.
is. Yeah, it's like a window into another
Yeah.
world.
Do you want to go to
Yeah,
the talking hole? Well, here it is. Uh,
yeah, exactly.
by the way, I noticed you had a Chainsaw Man shirt, so it's good taste. Thumbs up.
Ooh, thanks.
Um, Okay, so Ark Survival Evolved. I guess the big question there that's burning on everyone's mind is, did you get to meet Vin Diesel? I know that was before.
Oh no, that was far
No, I
before
know.
my time, or after my time.
I
I'd
know.
left.
I just
Oh, I
I
wish
wanted
I
to
could
say
have
the words
though.
Vin Diesel. That's all.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
okay, so Ark Survival Evolved. How did you end up here? How did you end up at Heart Machine?
I worked for a few years at ArenaNet, and in that time I was on an unannounced project, which eventually got the plug pulled on it.
Hmm.
And I felt like my time at uh, in Washington had kind of come to a close. I just wanted to. I'm an Air Force brat, so I'm used to like moving around a lot and like seeing a lot of different places. So I had a friend here in Texas that I graduated with from college, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to like come down and be in Texas?" And then I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And I, went through a couple studios here and all of that stuff, and it was kind of the AAA rigmarole where you work on a project and it's you work on it for like 2 years and then someone's like, we're not really feeling this, and
Hmm.
then it doesn't go anywhere. And I was like, kind of getting frustrated with that because it was like, not that I would say like your career is balanced or measured by what you ship, because arguably it just meant I got paid for 5 years of just straight up learning stuff and like honing my craft
Sure.
without ever having to do the like, oh, I gotta like now go back and optimize a bunch of stuff, which I have had to do that, but it was like an extended period of just like blue sky stuff. And then I was like, I actually want to like put the pedal to the metal. What environments do I feel like I'm really going to have to do that in? And it's going to be smaller ones where there's more at stake, and there's less massive publisher budget to like waffle around on.
Hmm.
And so I was like, looking at a few places, and one of my friends, he's a huge Hyperlight Drifter fan. I played a little bit of it, and I loved it, but hadn't occurred to me to even like apply to Heart Machine as a studio. And then I saw, I think it was June or July, there was a piece of media that came out about Solar Ash, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like the style a lot. This is like would be super fun to work on in 3D. Super refreshing after coming off of like a couple of projects that were a lot more like hyper detailed and like all this sort of thing. And I really enjoyed that interp, interpretive, I guess, yes, interpretive, impressionistic sort of style that you guys were going for with that. And I was like, okay, I'll shoot him an email, and then you guys got back to me. We kind of everything aligned, and here I am.
Here you are.
Here I
Um,
am.
it appears that on the stream our audio is going into robot mode a little bit, so
Uh
maybe the
oh.
stream can tell us if it's still bad or not. Um, well, regardless, I'm glad you're here now, Will. So tell me a little bit about environment art itself and like what that for you, what a day to day looks like, generally speaking, besides the lead stuff. If you're gonna dig
Okay,
into
yeah, because
if you yeah if you're gonna dig
yeah,
into like
outside of the
the
lead stuff, you guys want to hear about some spreadsheets?
no,
Yeah,
nobody wants to hear about. I love spreadsheets, but even I don't want to hear about spreadsheets.
yeah.
No, really,
No,
like what does a day to day look like for an environment artist, generally speaking?
yeah, so to me, there's two big aspects of environment art. One being what some people call palette art, or some people call prop art, and the other is the level design aspect of it. There's the actual placement of the objects, and that breaks down pretty differently. Like I can't give like a this is how it is at every studio sort of thing because some places do a little of both. We kind of seem to do a little bit of both, and I've been at studios where it's more split. But yeah, mostly it would be you would come in for the day. You would have your tasks, your Asana task of say today was make a treadmill or make some exercise equipment. And you would have a concept, or maybe your lead would have provided you with just some reference images to go off of and some call outs. And you'd get to work blocking it in, doing like a rough block in shape, communicating back and forth with your lead or your art director about like what's working, what isn't. And once that's approved, then say you've got your finished modeled treadmill, then you would UV it, throw it in something like Substance Painter, or some people still use Photoshop for texturing, though that, oof, no thanks. Um,
How
and
dare you? How dare you
no shade, no
knock the
shade.
good name of Adobe?
Yeah, exactly. But and then once the asset is kind of in its completed state, then you would throw it into your game engine of choice, and say you were making an exercise gym or something like that. You would then place it down in a level, and kind of position it. Maybe you'd have some extra bits and pieces, like you would have also modeled out some dumbbells or a water bottle, and then you would set those around to like kind of provide a little bit of a quote unquote environmental storytelling, as we call it in the biz. To be like, oh, someone was using dumbbells and drinking water next to this treadmill,
And
and
there's a
then
skeleton right there, so they
there's a
died doing
skeleton.
that.
Yeah. So because that's the no, that's the one that we love to use
It's
is
classic.
skeletons.
How else do
Yeah.
you tell stories if not with skeletons?
I mean, there's a whole book you could probably write on storytelling.
With skeletons. Um, okay, so it's good to know about your fixation on gyms and skeletons. So let's talk a little bit about Breaker and kind
Sure.
of what's different on this project now. Speaking to the environment art side of things and kind of the crew that you're overseeing from previous projects.
Yeah. So we're working with a lot of very interesting systems this time around. There are it's a little bit more unconventional than projects that I've been on the past, but it's really exciting. We're trying to build out these zones, these different areas for our stages that all feel like they can live together, but they're still vibrant and exciting, kind of alien, but also human at the same time. Definitely, with the environmental storytelling side of things, trying to pull
Skeletons.
in all of these elements to let people know, like, oh, someone was uh, like maybe sitting here waiting for the bus, or maybe something, like a car crashed here and then something, exploded next to it or something like that. So, uh, you know, we're starting off, kind of on the more traditional side, but I think we're gonna, really push things and get kind of crazy with it as we go along.
Yeah, we're getting a little wild with it. We've talked about this a little bit, and we'll just briefly uh, jump on it for a moment, where we're doing procedural elements to how our world's being laid out. And so I
Yeah.
know that's a particular challenge that's different than just purely decking everything by hand as you traditionally would.
Yeah, it's yeah, it has been interesting to say the least.
Now you're decking with
Fortunately,
math.
yeah, exactly. It's a little more abstract, I think, than usual, but we have some really stellar kick-ass tech art people who have built out some tools for us that are going to allow us to I I am very committed to making sure that despite, procedurally building a level, any one level that you play through is not going to feel that way on the outset. Everything should sit together. Everything, it's not like you're going to have like some building and then randomly a giant rock crashing through it or something like that. It's going to be like, if the building is there, the systems will know to place, rubble procedurally around it, and they'll know to like, populate the inside of the building with little store racks and stuff. And I think that's one thing that I'm like super excited about for Breaker, is to just get to expand on um, what these different cultures like have going on in a 3D space. It's arguably like a pretty monumental task to translate Drifter from 3D to or from 2D to 3D. But I think all of these little opportunities to be like, oh hey, here's some like street signs, and like here's a a little hyperlight tech statue that you can look at, and like from all these different angles that you didn't get to see it from in the second one or the first one. So this is even though it's not a sequel, it's still in the same world, so we get to borrow a lot of fun elements from that, which I'm enjoying quite a bit.
Gotcha. Um, yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. Do you want to take a look at one of the videos that you put together for this, and we can talk through it?
Oh, yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Let's go ahead. Here, I'm going to switch it up. Um, we'll go into our other mode here. Ooh, okay. So we're showing the video 01 of the kind of broken down city parts. This is one of the stage environments with an old city that's broken down and crumbly.
Yeah, so what this one is this is um yeah, this is stage one, and we have a variety of different zones that are, playing with different elevations, different modes of traversal. You'll have, your hoverboard, and we're really trying to make it so that every single aspect of these levels feels fun to skate through and navigate around and fight on top of. But at the same time, especially with this stage, we want to hammer home that like this whole area has been completely overtaken by nature, and that's been a really fun experiment to try and like blend these wilder elements with the different parts of the city and spreading those around while also not making it feel too disparate.
So I wanted to talk about something that's coming up here on the stream, which is the day-night cycle. So how does that affect how you think about environments and how you deck them and how you light them when you have such a major difference between the lighting cycles?
Well, there's a couple of ways that I think we'll wind up thinking about it. One of which is we have a system in place for dynamically turning on lights on or off depending on the day-night cycle, and I think we're going to want to push that quite a bit in stage one, but also moving forward into the future stages where we can get a little wilder with things. Um, Having like more bioluminescence and having things that react differently, so at the daytime maybe an area is actually spookier during the day because the bioluminescence is all off, but then at night it almost becomes sort of a magical place because there's all these different little bits and pieces around. In the hub area in particular, I have some very particular ideas for the mood and atmosphere of the nighttime in the hub. I think of things like Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts, or
Hmm.
the alleyways from Tokyo and that sort of thing. So giving those sorts of feelings to environments between the day and night is honestly like, yeah, it's like a lot of fun, but it's also challenging because lights in and of themselves, lighting is its own discipline altogether.
It is. Fortunately, we have multidisciplinary folks here. So, speaking of disciplines and kind of the breadth of environment art and what that encompasses, like where's your niche? Where do you really lie, and what's the most engaging thing? What do you like to do the most, and why when it comes to building out environments?
I really like to build out shaders, which is not the craziest or most exciting thing in the universe, but I mean, shaders are extremely important. And for those that don't know, a shader is ostensibly the set of logic that drives a material. So a material would be what you plug all of your textures and everything into, but a shader is what tells the material what textures do you even need to use right now, or what parameters do you even need to use. So say you wanted to make it so that a rock always had grass on the top of it. You had always had a grass texture or snow on the top of it. That would get built out in the shader, and then that parameter would get exposed in the material that would get applied to the rock. I like setting up those logic chains and like giving people more tools and fun things to work with. Um, we actually have a pretty robust material system in the game right now that is fairly texture agnostic. It basically allows uh, uh, artists to make a wild variety of different materials for the same object and give it a very different feel each time. Um,
So, well, I know we have a video of that. Do we want to jump on that and kind of talk about what that is and what
Oh,
that
that one
means?
was, yeah, okay. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I guess that sort of ties in with this a little bit.
Yeah, let's
Um,
let me pull that up here. So before we proceed, I think it would be helpful if you described what a material is. Like why is this a thing and what do people have to know
so
to better understand?
yeah, materials can be a lot of different things, but mostly 99.9% of the time, a material is just the color and normal and like metal data, how shiny something is on an actual asset or a prop. So, like, if you looked at like a tin can, that's going to have a way shinier texture on it that is in its material, and then as opposed to if you looked at like a rock on the ground that's not quite as shiny, but maybe a little bit. There's like a little bit in between there, and that texture that you put into the material in like you plug it into the little slot where it's like put the shiny texture here, uh, or what we call roughness. That would drive that part of the rock. And so the materials are their own discipline. I worked as a material artist strictly for 2 years, so it was it's something I'm definitely very passionate about.
And so this video here, what is it showcasing?
So this one is showcasing like one of our rock assets, and it's kind of cycling through. Basically, you have like your vanilla rock, then you have it goes into maybe more like limestone sort of thing, or like an obsidian, and then the last one is just like I don't know, some crazy alien rock, and all of that is getting driven through four different materials. And basically all that is driven by is because the way we've set up the material, it's pretty technical. I don't want to get too into it, but basically you can just say, make this rock blue now. Make the edges white. Make the crevices, make those like a little grungier or something like that. And so being able to just outline those things, given the style of the game and uh, how interpretive we're being with it, uh, it gives us a wide amount of reusability for assets across different stages, which is I find very gratifying to get more usage out of something that in the past would have had to have been like a its own texture specifically. Everything was
Hmm.
very static up to a point, but
Right.
now with shaders, yeah, you can build out a wider amount of flexibility.
Yeah, this so with this stuff, it reminds me of like non-destructive workflows and different pipelines. Like even in Photoshop, if you're using, you can still do things like that. But a lot of modern workflows try and make it so that if you're editing things, you can edit all the different parts of it to make changes
Exactly.
to it, rather than
Yep.
saying like I'm going to flatten everything. And it's like think about it
Yep.
as layers essentially, and each of
Yep.
those layers can be changed or altered in some way or another, and that can affect overall what you're doing. um, and you keep those variables in there to make sure that you can continue to tweak them and have that wide variety without destroying the original or having to like bake it or flatten it all out and export and all that stuff. It can be done in a more dynamic manner. So
Yep. It's definitely gotten to a point now where if I feel like I'm doing something destructive, I'm almost positively doing it wrong.
yeah,
So yeah.
that wasn't the case that long ago.
No, no, it's honestly to me this is like the best time for game art that's ever existed. Like there
Yeah.
are so many tools and everything at our disposal. It's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty wild the amount of tools and cheap tools or free tools out there as well. We
Yeah,
talk about Substance, which is like a brand of different suites of tools, like Painter and Designer and whatever else. But there are other tools out there that emulate similar workflows and even stuff that simulates what Photoshop does. If you're going to go back then and thinking about Unity and Unreal, it's like, well, yeah, they're practically free now, except for on the back end, and you can do a lot in
yeah,
it. You can do a lot in it for free, and you get all these
yeah.
wild pieces of art. So let me jump to the hub. We have another video here that I
Oh
thought
yeah,
pop up.
yeah,
Let's talk about our hub. So this is a place in the game in Breaker that you'll go back to. You start out here, you go back to this place. You'll do some upgrades here, some building. Oh, let me stop this one. Um, oops. You'll do some upgrading, some building out of elements. Um, can you speak to what's going on here on the environment art side of things? Because I know a lot of time and effort went into the hub in particular, from lighting to all the meshes that are built out to all the like decking of things and arranging of it. Like, can you kind of give a broader overview of the process here to make a space like this?
Yeah, so the hub started off when I started on. It was a lot more basic of a space. I mean, the bones were there. We had an idea for where we wanted to go with it, what the vibe was supposed to be. Um, but over time, we sort of nailed down like, okay, this is where the rail shop is going to go. This is where this shop is going to go. Um, and then the the foundation was already very strong to begin with, so from there it was just coming up with where does this color fit and where does this shape fit, and then kind of slotting them all together, because we want to kind of go for that Akihabara sort of street view sort of thing where everything feels a little bit on top of each other but not overwhelming to the eye. So it's been a lot of back and forth balancing that sort of thing. um, you know a lot of this is still, kind of something that's subject to change. Messing with like the
It's all subject to
foliage.
change.
Yes, exactly.
We're still a ways away from our early access release, so
Yes,
anything between
yeah,
now and then is like not done. You know.
yeah. So like especially with the foliage is very tricky, and I imagine it'll go through several more iterations before we find and land on something that we're completely happy with. We have this, day-night cycle that kind of transitions from all the way around into the nighttime when the lights come on and everything starts to feel a little bit more spooky but also comfy at the same time. Balancing that out has been a fun challenge in and of itself. Um, and then yeah, the background in particular has been a big sort of initiative for us to sort of tie this area to give it some sort of sense of cohesion with stage one. We're using some similar assets between the two. But obviously with this place we can be a lot more bespoke, and we can, place more, like we have like the little ramen shop that Wolf made that is awesome, and the hotel where you get to meet several characters, just hanging out and having a good time. So yeah, that's kind of been part of the process, and just again balancing composition. It's a tricky thing, but it's a lot of fun in the end, and everyone, all the environment artists on the team kind of get to own. We sort of broke it up, like Danielle Wallace, she owned the one of the shops, and then Cameron owned one, and then we'd kind of like all sort of go through and iterate on them on our own, and then come together and review and say like, oh, I really like this part of this. We'll take this from the concept and amp it up, or we'll cut this from the concept because it's not really working next to this one. Can you like throw some bushes over here, and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, it's quite an intense process. I mean, I'll just say it starts with a gray box, which is like literally gray boxes that you put
yeah,
in. And I had initially laid that out way back when, a million years ago now, for the general kind of flow and space of it. You know, I'd done like very little on any of the detail oriented work because I was mostly working with cubes at that point. And then as an environment artist started to tackle it, as other folks started to put more work into it and model things, actually import things in like that, started to take shape, and you start to understand the difference in scale. You know,
yes,
scale is a big thing to be aware of when it comes to 3D games, and understanding how subjective it is, but also how uh, like that perception at a different camera angle, at a different field of view, like zoom level, etc., how fast your character's moving, those all affect scale. And
yeah.
it's one of the reasons why games have such huge doors in them, for example. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's not, even if you do like a one-to-one perfect scale, it probably won't look right in context of the game, and it probably is going to be difficult to function well especially
Yeah.
if you're going to like go in for collision with a camera and like go through a door. And so there are all sorts of reasons why scale is just like a big, bad, mean thing to deal with. And I know, we're still not done digging around
Yeah,
the scale side.
we had to do a yeah, quite a big pass between all the different shop fronts because they were all made by different contributing artists, and then as well as that, there's the interiors, which we have to think about, where it's like moving from an interior space to an exterior space. How is the lighting going to transition between the two? Is
Flashing
that
red
is
lights.
Yes, exactly. Um, and that sort of thing. Thinking about, multiple people are running around here, like, is it going to look super weird and crowded in one area? Like, making sure that everyone has, the breathing room to run around while also not making things feel too barren or anything like that as well.
It's true. Uh, well, speaking of barren, I'm going to transition into
Uh,
our another biome here, and this is our last video, and then we'll talk a bit about this and jump into questions. So let me pop this bad boy up. All right. So yeah, this is one of our other environments, one of our other biomes that we're working on actively. Can you speak to this a bit and kind of the challenges that come about with a dramatically different biome than we've had already on the stream showcased?
oh, the Acidmire. Yeah. Yeah, this place is going to be a lot of fun. Um, it's an ancient civilization kind of built on top of maybe another ancient civilization. It's an old place. It's a bit unforgiving. You have you know boiling pots of acid, and like lots of like hazardous terrain. I feel like this area will be relatively unforgiving in terms of transitioning from the first. So we have again a variety of zones, only some of which yeah, Poison Swamp. We are Souls fans here, so no basilisks though, as far as I know.
Who's to say? Who's to say?
Um, so, but yeah, there's again, I think we want echoes of civilization running through each of our areas, but to different extents and different flavors, um, giving you a taste of multiple cultures that would have inhabited this place with all their different walks of life and architectural styles and all of that stuff. But as well, we have some more pastoral landscapes dotted around through here. Um, and of course, the ever-present hyperlight tech that greebly stuff running throughout the DNA of the whole world itself. So,
I love the Greebly stuff.
oh yeah.
Um, so Will, I guess the other thing to ask here for you in particular is um, what is your least favorite thing to do when it comes to environment art?
uh, renaming and moving things in Unreal. No, I don't know. That one is a pain in the butt. But in terms of the creative
It's an honest
process,
answer.
um, I guess well, what's funny? A lot of the harshest parts have actually kind of been erased. It used to be LODs. LODs used to be the bane of my
Mm.
existence. But now, especially on the environment side, if something isn't being animated, Unreal as an engine is just capable of, giving you completely adequate LODs right out of the gate. So I'd say I have a lot of PTSD from LODs, but I guess nowadays it would probably just be um, hmm, I don't know. Tweaking basically organizing shaders. I like making shaders, but actually organizing all of the nodes and grouping them and all of that stuff can get a bit tedious, I suppose. But it's a necessary evil. I'm a little bit of a scatterbrain at times, but it helps keep me honest. So
Yeah, fair enough. Um, so I guess just to explain one term, you said LODs a lot there. So
oh
what
yeah,
is an LOD?
an LOD, level of detail model. So basically, within games, there's everything's made out of polygons or triangles, And certain objects, uh, if you had every object that you modeled in the game be the maximum number of polygons as when you put it in. So say you have, again, we'll go with the tin can model. I'll use this tin can here. It's some Mountain Dew, not sponsored. Um, so if this was right up close to the camera, right? You see how there's like a little bit of a round edge right there? You would model that in, because if I'm holding it up to my face, say it's like Call of Duty and it's like we're like real close up on stuff because it's a first person game. If I brought it back here, you can't see that round edge as much. So what you would want to do is make a version of this model where the literal polygons don't even actually incorporate that round edge. And so
Mm,
then you're saving all of those polygons. And then say you move it even further away, and then it's
nice.
like, yeah, it's just a cylinder at that point. Like you don't even so it's a way that we optimize models within games so that you can have hundreds, if not thousands, of assets represented on screen without having to render them at the full amount of detail, because that's just not how the human eye even perceives the world. It's, we're
Right.
constantly abstracting things unless they
Our,
are directly within our focus.
our brain edits a lot out so that we can focus. If our brains didn't do a lot of editing, our brains would just, I think your eyeballs would pop.
Yeah,
Um,
we'd be like the dude at the end of Total Recall.
information overload. Um, okay, so then, Will, do you want to transition into some Q&A with folks?
Sure, sounds good to me.
Okay, because we're gonna come close to 4 about now, or 10 till. So I think it's about time to take some questions. So if you got questions, please put them in the chat. We're fielding them, and we'll get started here. We have Sky Squiggles, or Sky Squiggles, yeah. At what point did you all decide to make Breaker? Um, Breaker's actually something that I was thinking about many years ago, even before Drifter was done. Um, I had been kind of kicking around the idea of what a different game in the series might look like. And it wasn't necessarily a sequel even then, it was kind of intended to be its own thing in the world of. Um, did some prototyping on it like way back in 2017, and then didn't get started on it in earnest until, gosh, what year is it? Like 2020. So, like later in 2020. So it's been kicking around for a while. It's not a like brand new fresh idea. It's a lot of time and effort and otherwise went into what this game is going to be and how we're going to do it, and a lot of lessons were learned. Praise Apollo asks, Will, what's your personal favorite part of the environment art process?
Oh, I know who that is.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, like I'd kind of, we actually organically touched on this a little bit already, but yeah, like I'd said, I think personally my real favorite is just seeing all of the individual Lego pieces of an environment come together into a greater whole, whether that's constructed by myself or someone else. A really successful kit of modular pieces, like the last personal piece that I did, it was a ton of fun to just like make like different lengths of board. Like I made like three different planks, and then basically was just like, I'm gonna push myself to see how many forms I can make with these three different planks and make it not look like I'm using the same asset repeated. So that's like always a fun like brain challenge for me. Probably, yeah, I'd say that's close to my favorite, if not it. I also like VR sculpting a lot. That's a big one.
yeah, it's a good answer. Slither Winter, or Slither Winter. Why can't I pronounce that? How closely do you work with concept artists in general and at Heart Machine?
Well, he lives across town, so I don't know, like 5 or 6 miles.
Wait, what?
Sorry,
Wow.
I was
Wow,
making
Will. That was a stretch. That was a stretch.
Okay, sorry, no. We work very closely. We talk almost every single day. Danny Mall, extremely talented dude. He is also art lead on the project, but he does, a bunch of different things like for the concept department. from characters to weapons to environments. But when we get him on the environment side, he is always very communicative. We will chat. He'll, basically say like, hey, he'll do like 3 or 4 rough sketches of something and throw them at me or Alex and say like, what do you guys think of this? Which is your favorite? And then he'll take that through to the end. So a lot of collaboration there for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty tight knit dynamic, and I think you almost have to have that when it comes to enviro art. It's hard to exist without being in direct contact on the regular uh, with concept artists as you're, especially with our process, as you're responding to things in the world and feedback and all that. It's like, yeah, why not be as closely knit as possible?
Yeah.
Sainter Zerobot or Obot says, question for Will: are there 2D features from Drifter that you are particularly excited to translate into 3D?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Um, the labs have been probably my favorite. I have been a little bit selfish about you know being the lead. I can kind of divvy up work, to where I want, and everybody will get a chance to work on lab stuff. But I was very excited to get to do that for the trailer in particular. And while the trailer was its own, sort of pre-rendered thing, um, you could expect the in-game labs to have a very similar sense of depth, and I feel like it's one of the aspects that are very quintessentially Drifter that have we've done a decent enough job of beginning to translate that language over with.
Yeah, I think the labs are looking really cool. And the way that that's been changed from 2D to 3D and the types of things you have to pay attention to, that's not an easy feat to translate
Yeah.
things from one dimension to another, especially with a freeform camera like this. So it really changes things up a lot. Um, okay. Jacob Hippler asks, what sort of environment is your favorite? Oh, well, we already answered that. Oh, what sort of environment is your favorite to build? So I guess like
Oh yeah.
environment type, or is it cities? Is it
Yeah.
old Western
I
towns?
love fantasy buildings. I mean, it's cliche as all get out, but like, there's something about a half timber building that era of construction that lends itself to modularity so well. Um, but I've recently been trying to push myself in my spare time to do more sci-fi stuff, and in particular, that it's not really an environment type, but an art style. I've been very fascinated with the sort of PS1 demake style. Um, that sort of like crunchy texture, sort of low detail model, but like really nice lighting, like modern lighting sort of stuff. That's been a lot of fun for me to work on in my free time.
Hmm. Yeah, that stuff is fun. Um, all right. Polaire asks, will there be snow slash winter in HLP? Will there be an area for that? Yes, that is currently, it's one of the areas that we're going to be working on. Not not next, but next after next internally. That's something that we're jumping to after that.
Yeah, that area is going to be dope.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited because I'm a big fan of winter areas. I think those are my favorite in games, honestly.
Really? Snow
Yeah,
areas? Oh,
yeah. I mean,
you
I like
masochist.
no way. There's some really beautiful snow areas. I know in a lot of older games you have like crappy snowland and
I
Mario
mean, as
Kart.
long as it's not making me slip around on a bunch of ice,
Yeah,
like sure, that's
that's
fine. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's like I know there are
Oh
plenty of
yeah, yeah.
games where the winter area or the water level is the worst because I don't want to
Oh
swim and I
yeah.
don't want to slip around on ice. But there are definitely
Yes.
games that present really amazing looking and really interesting to interact with in winter environments. I would say Mario 64 did a great job of having a winter environment that wasn't a pain in the ass, even though it
Yeah.
did have some slippery stuff in it.
Well, it was all the like sliding on your butt down
Yeah,
things,
you
which was
got like
always
cool
that was
hills
fun.
and everything and
Yeah,
races.
yeah, yeah.
Banjo Kazooie did a great job of that. The newest God of War was like a lot of winter
Oh my
stuff at a certain
gosh.
point and had amazing snow
Whew.
tech.
Yeah.
That was pretty dope. So yeah, I don't know. Snow
Yeah.
areas are just a lot of fun, and when it's done well, I'll make that
Yeah.
caveat. Um, all right, Will, what's your favorite color? Asks Black Box.
Man, if you could like look around my apartment, you can't see all of it, but
Is it eggshell white?
no, like an emerald green, especially like a velvety green. That's like my favorite, along with
Mm-hmm.
like brass. That color combination has always been I don't know. It's like it's comfy, but also like luxurious. I like to feel luxurious.
Fortunately, we have an
Just
entire level that's that color scheme.
yeah, exactly. There you go. No
Um,
velvet couches in there, but
no velvet
maybe
couches.
at some point.
Uh, some random dude 458 asks, "Is development for the game running smoothly?" It's running terribly. No, it's running well. We It's a lot of work, but we're on track. We're doing the things we need to do. Um, we're here talking, so that means things aren't on ultra fire right now. So I think that's a good sign when we have a live stream. It means we're live, and it means we can function without me or you there for a little bit. Um, yeah, I don't know. How do you think production's going right now, Will?
I think it's great. You know, I think once we're all kind of like hitting the road on some of the newer areas, and we start showing you guys some of that stuff, you're actually going to be pretty surprised with the how much progress we're going to be able to make in the amount of time up to early access. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling
Um,
confident.
feeling good. Enoa asks, when will we see gameplay? Um, at some point this year, and probably sooner than later, but we'll see. We're doling stuff out as we go and feeling out, what exactly our schedule is going to be for this stuff. We have some plans around a larger gameplay reveal now that we've kind of made the announcement. Now that we're showing a bit of art here and there, we're taking it step by step, and we'll drop something on the gameplay side for this year. So, okay, who else is up? Perfectly mediocre. Will, what is your favorite dinosaur? Your third favorite dinosaur?
Third favorite. Oh, easy. Mosasaurus.
Mosasaurus.
Yeah, terrifying.
That's very
Have you ever thought
specific.
about seeing one? Like, they would be number one, but they honestly scare me so much that they're not going to get the top two spots.
Does anybody have Triceratops in their top three?
That's my number five.
There you go. So the
I
answer
love
is no.
dinosaurs, so no, actually, well, you know what's funny? Triceratops were thought to be the most survivable. Like they were supposed to be not the apex predator,
Hmm.
but the literal like hardest dinosaur to kill
The
for like
tanks.
anything. Yeah, they were just like if something an Allosaurus was gonna go after a dinosaur or a Triceratops, they would need like 4 or 5 to take out one of them. So
Yeah, I'm a fan of all dinosaurs, but I feel like Triceratops. It's got cool horns. That's great, but I don't know. Like the fanned out head was never my style. Like the
yeah,
little
like the
beak
the
going
design
on.
composition, it's all
Yeah,
off.
I just like the body shape with the head shape. It's like they're like it feels kind of bolted on.
Oh yeah. If you want a really cursed one, I believe it's called the Therodon. Look that guy up. Those things are not.
Paragon.
They look like a cursed Dr. Seuss creature. Um,
Hey, I'm a fan of Dr. Seuss creatures.
but
Um,
yeah, that's the
Daniel,
Dino Talk.
that's the Dino Minute. Daniel asks, broad question, but any tips for environment art portfolio?
Oh,
That's a good question.
yeah, that is a good question. Well, I'd say there are. Oh, there are. It is a lot to. But basically, decide on a style that you like. Decide on a very like I wouldn't say look at a studio that you want to work for because I will personally say I did that. I was like one of those Blizzard people for forever. And there's nothing wrong with if you want to work for Blizzard or Riot or one of those studios, but if you want to do stylized work, look at a lot of different other studios because there's a lot of new other studios that are doing stylized work. If you want to do realistic work, look at the quality that's coming out of those studios. Don't I would say one thing, and this isn't like the easiest thing to hear, but don't compare yourself to your peers. Compare yourself to like what you find inspirational. Like if you are looking at stuff if you are looking at your peers' work and they're students or, hobbyists, it's cool to compare and, give each other feedback, but really look at the quality that's coming out of like, the newest Horizon Zero Dawn game or the Breath of the Wild or something like that, and really dig in on like what is working there and what isn't. And also s- don't overscope yourself. A lot of people try and build out these like giant things for their first projects, just like a really awesome house, like one house that is just kind of like, even if it's in a void, if it has really good composition and texture work and modeling, that is just as, impressive to me personally as if you built out an entire city. I mean, obviously a big city is really cool, but just don't kill yourself, because I've definitely been at a point several times when I was earlier in my career where I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go off and make like a whole thing and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, guess what? I didn't even remotely get close to finishing that. And then I burnt out and now I have nothing to show for it. So,
It's good. It's good advice. So, kind of last question here to wrap up. In any project that you work on, what do you hope people will pay attention to or notice?
oh, I think just I just want to make people feel comfortable. Like, I wouldn't say that there's any one particular thing that I want them to look at, but I want people to enjoy walking through the environments that I make,
Mm.
as a holistic whole, Um, I feel like maybe it's sort of it's why I became a lead, because I've never been a super detail oriented person. I've usually liked to focus on the bigger picture of things. Um, but beforehand, it would have been rocks. I would have wanted everybody to like the rocks that I made. So,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Rocks. That's the short.
Yeah. Hey, rocks are tough. They're
Rocks
tougher
are
than you
tough.
think.
Tougher than
Yeah.
Triceratops. They're the tank of the environment art world.
Exactly.
All right, Will, thanks for hanging out today and talking about you and your profession and the game. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, that's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us for a little bit, listening in on process and all that fun stuff. We'll be doing another one of these in the not too distant future, maybe in June thereabouts. What is it, the middle of May right now? Yeah, we'll do another one of these in June,
Sweet.
and we'll make some announcements on that front. So I know folks had other questions, but we got to go. We got to get out of here. I'll count it
Yeah,
out.
you guys can
Yeah.
reach me on Twitter if anybody else has any other questions. I'm sure you will put that out there for people.
Yeah, ping Will on Twitter about all your questions, and then he'll do all your work for you. Um, all right, I'll count it down, and I'll see everybody later. 3, 2, 1, goodbye.
Goodbye.